Are you
Yeah.
seeing
So
the
kind of the general approach for an arthroscopy is, you have your two major compartments in the shoulder. You have the inside the glenohumeral joint within the
Mhm.
capsule. So that's where we start. Every scope starts inside the joint. You're looking at the articular surface, the level of
Okay.
arthritis, you're looking at the labrum and the biceps tendon, and then you're looking at the undersurface of the cuff, and you're seeing this the subscap in the front, and you're seeing the supra and infra. And if you can see the teres minor, great, but you don't always see it from the view that we have. And you're looking underneath it at its insertion. So my first sign of a rotator cuff tear comes
Mhm.
from inside the joint, and I'm looking up at the rotator cuff kind of ceiling that exists. And if I see that there's a hole through there, well, we already know there's a rotator cuff tear.
Okay.
But my next step is, after we've done all our work inside the joint, is to go into the subacromial space. So the subacromial space is above the rotator cuff and underneath the acromion. And
Hold
that
on, hold on, hold on. I'm slow. So the all right, so the subacromial space is above the acromion,
now
no,
above
above
the
the cuff.
rotator cuff, above the rotator cuff,
Yeah.
below the acromion.
Yes. Yes.
You have,
Yeah.
you, we can feel our acromion, the bone right here, below,
Hmm.
right underneath it. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the space where you get like bursitis, subacromial bursitis, right? Subacromial underneath the acromion. So that's
Sure.
what we're talking about there.
And then and that's where you can see the insertion of
Yeah,
the
and that's and
of
that's where we do and that's where we do all the rotator cuff work. That's where
okay.
we see we're able to go and kind of medially and see the muscle turn into tendon. And when I'm in that space in a big rotator cuff tear, it
Hmm.
how to the best way to describe it is, you have your ball, which is this is the head of the humerus. That
Yeah.
rotator cuff should go on top of it, and you just see that it's lifted off, and you can see actually into the joint. So it's kind of the inverse of when you're in the joint, but I can see into the joint, and that's a sign, full thickness tear. We have work to do.
It's not distinct tendons that you see. It's one conjoined tendon, or
Yeah.
you can see, oh, look at that's the biceps femoris, that's the semitendinosus, that's the gracilis.
Yeah,
Not
no,
really.
not
No.
really. Yes and no. So, like I said, the subscap is a little bit separate. That's in its own kind of area. Uh,
Yes.
the subscap is separated from the supraspinatus by what we call the rotator interval, and that's
Hmm.
and that's where the biceps tendon is, and a few other structures. But so, the vast majority of these tears are involving the supraspinatus. But if it goes back far enough posteriorly, well, then you start to incorporate the infraspinatus. And while you're looking at the tendon, it's not always clear when does it actually turn into the infraspinatus. You have to kind of go a little bit further medial to see when it splits off. So I'm not routinely looking at that. I just, it's important to an extent.
What if you see an MRI, you can't see any tendon attached there, and you get in there and holy mackerel, you're looking for it and it's nowhere to be found. Then what do you do?
Are you saying that it's nowhere to be found, meaning that it's like fully retracted? Is that, or there's no tear?
Am I feeding you good or no?
Well, yeah, you
Yeah,
feel.
exactly.
Okay, so perfect. So yes, so that does happen occasionally. So, the concept here that we have to kind of back up for a second is that what is the natural history of a rotator cuff tear? So we already talked briefly about how that muscle that goes unused from a full thickness tear can turn into fat.
Hmm.
But the other major thing that happens is that muscle tendon that is no longer attached over time retracts, and it starts to move closer to the center of the body, away from its natural insertion on the humerus. So as that happens, the tendon and muscle becomes less elastic and less able to be pulled over to reinsert it onto the humerus. So to kind of answer your question is, yes, sometimes in these chronic irreparable tears, that cuff is pulled all the way back to the level of the glenoid, the actual socket of the ball and socket joint. It's pulled back to the glenoid. And when I see that, I'm saying, oof, this is not looking good. And in those situations, we have a few different options and different pathways that we go down. Do I say we're going to do absolutely everything we can to try and give this cuff a chance, and I'll release it from everything. I'll try and, separate it from different other structures to get rid of those adhesions and then pull it back over the humerus? Or do I say we need a different solution in this situation, and the road
If you put too much stretch on a muscle and you pull it back, though, it won't be functional.
exactly, and
So
it will just re-rupture. It will just re-rupture.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that goes into your decision making process.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
And in a lot of cases, also, in these patients where it's borderline how much tension you're putting on it, and you're like, ugh, this is a lot of tension. Well, if that does fail, well, you need that information from that first surgery to know, okay, for the next time, we cannot just re-repair this.
essentially the art of medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, what happens when? All right, you know what?